All right. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, Saints fans. Whatever time of day it is, we're going to do a couple of bonus episodes this week as we're getting ready for the season. So I have first up is Ian Howard, who, if you're not following yet, you should be, because he's one of the more entertaining people on Saints Twitter, and he puts up with my bullshit. So Ian is always a lot of fun. And today, Ian and I are going to be talking about what are the expectations and the concerns for the offense. So Ian, how you doing today?
Man, long day. Super excited to jump on the pod with you. If people don't know, you gave me my first podcasting opportunity, almost 4 years ago?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, you had me feature on, I don't know what the hell you were thinking about asking me to join one of your podcasts, but yeah, that was my first experience doing it. So to come kind of full circle is super cool to be invited back on. So I'm definitely excited to do this.
Yeah, no, appreciate you coming on, man. And I listen to what you and Kev do on the Saints Talk podcast. For anybody who doesn't know, Ian was the guy that had to step up when Nick betrayed us and went back to the land up north, and is still our best reporter. But anyway, Ian and Kevin do great work there. I love listening to you guys and the content you guys put out. So figured I'm just gonna steal a little bit of that magic and bring it our way. And I'm gonna start you off with a real lob for you. So your guy, the presumptive favorite going into next year, according to Ian Howard, and I actually don't disagree with that much. What are you kind of thinking for Taysom this year? I know we saw him in some packages last year, and he did some stuff, but is there anything that you've seen in the preseason that makes you think that his role could expand during the regular season this year?
Yes, for sure. I think by the end of the year, teams were no longer concerned about him. They all knew that in most zone read situations, he would keep it. Because I think he was just excited to be on the field and not necessarily reading the field, but just trying to have an opportunity to have the ball in his hand. I don't think anybody respected his passing ability. But I think that throw he made in the Philadelphia playoff game that was called back to Kamara may have
such a bullshit call too.
Yeah, man. I think that may have opened Peyton's eyes a little bit. Because of the look, they got the look they wanted. They got the reaction out of the defense. 10 guys were in the box, and AK runs free up the seam, and just a beautiful throw. I think we've seen him see the field a little better. I think the game is kind of slowed down for him, and I do think he's going to pass more this year. I think he's going to have a bigger role than last year. I want to say he was in 20% of the offensive snaps last year. I would not be shocked if he got closer to 30, 35%, one way or the other. So I think he's going to get ample playing time, and I think they're going to expand what he does offensively to showcase his new comfort.
Yeah, no, I think I'm almost entirely in agreement there. I think probably the only thing I would add to it is, obviously, he has looked, I won't say like a completely different player, but I'd actually phrase it differently than that. I would say last year in the preseason and even in the regular season, he looked like an athlete playing football. And he's just such an incredible athlete, he can get away with that.
Right.
This year, he looks like a football player who's crazy athletic. And You really don't understand that difference until you see it happen live in front of you. Oh, wow, this is a completely different guy. And all of that aside, though, I think the element that's actually going to open up Taysom, even if it's not a bigger role, I don't know if the snap counts will be that much different because I don't know, from a personnel standpoint, how much they're going to be okay with. Drew's only going to be okay coming off the field a certain percentage of the time, but I think the distribution of the plays that he is on the field is going to be a lot different. But I don't think it's just going to be on his development. I think the addition of Cook
Mm-hmm.
completely changes what you can do with him, because having a real threat at the tight end position when you're running the zone read, it already puts so much pressure on the linebackers and the safeties to make the right read. And last year, on those plays, the only real option is he gives it to Kamara, he pulls it back, and if he pulls it back and the wide receiver ain't open, he can pretty much dump it off to Kamara, and that's about it. Just on the way that play works. Mike's getting doubled on those plays no matter what. But when you add a Jared Cook in there instead of, Hey Arnold and, you know, Hill,
Pastor Ben, yeah.
or Pastor Ben, now you have a guy who, if you put a linebacker or a safety on him, that means that the read option is probably going to hurt you one way or another. If those guys crash to take those lanes away, well, now you've got Cook running out there free, and we know he's a yak monster.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm Sean Payton, we have over a decade of Sean Payton to look at, and we know Sean has his tendencies because literally every coach ever has tendencies. But Sean also has things he loves to do. Bill Belichick, it's always, I'm gonna find what you do best, and I'm taking that away. And I don't care what it is, I will take that away, and I will make you beat me with something else. And I'll bet you can't.
Mm-hmm.
Sean has smartest guy in the room syndrome, always has, and that's not a bad thing. Sean loves to force people to make bad decisions, and over the years, it's been with personnel. For a long time, it was Reggie, then it was Darren Sproles, then it was AK, but now we don't have enough talent at the skill positions, so there's things you can do with AK, but now it could be Taysom, where it's, I'm going to come over to the line, and there's basically, we could do any one of three things depending on how you react to it. And it doesn't matter which one you choose, you're still wrong.
Yeah, and I think Taysom, he showed a few things this preseason, and I know my Twitter has been lit up all day about he's done it against third stringers. Well, he's playing with third stringers.
Yep.
Like that goes both ways. It's not like the Saints, he's playing with the Saints first team and they're going against third stringers. No, he's playing with a piss poor O-line with wide receivers that let the ball hit him in the face, or Semi Cobbs drops a 25-yard deep end that's put between the 1 and the 5. Like, he's playing with third stringers as well.
Yep.
But he showed the ability to read the field. Last year, it was, I have one read on this gadget play, and if that guy is not open, I don't have a plan B. So it was good to see him be able to read the field. He showed a lot of pocket athleticism of making the free rusher miss. And I just think, like you said, Jared Cook, if that linebacker takes one false step, that's the difference between a 15-yard play and a 40-yard play with Jared Cook. So just getting that advantage and just making that safety stay back, now that does open some running lanes. So I think Sean is going to incorporate more of the, and I hate that term, run pass option, but I think it is going to be used a little more to where it was a run between him or AK. I think he's going to have the ability to fake it if he sees the matchup he wants and throw the ball a little more. So I'm very excited to see what his future holds.
No question.
He also, and I meant to say this, and I have not said this on even our pod or even on Twitter, he looks like he worked on his lateral movement this offseason. He's always been a downhill physical, but now he's making guys miss in a phone booth with moves. And I'm saying, well, he didn't do that last year. Like, he's really juking people now, and he's still physical as hell. So we'll see, man. I have big hopes for him. I think it is an open competition going into the 2021 season for sure at this point.
I about 85% agree with that for going into next year. And the only thing he needs to show me, I saw a little bit, but I saw a lot more from Teddy. Because especially in the preseason, I always live by the mantra, nothing is as good or as bad as it looks except for injuries. Because you never know, are they doing specific techniques because they want to do it from an evaluation standpoint? Are they doing specific techniques because I know you struggle here and I want you to focus on this in live action that doesn't count? And and in dozens of other factors that we never have visibility into that can change how guys perform, but the coaches do know about. So I always try to hold myself back on preseason, but there's still things you can see. I think Teddy is a few levels ahead of him still in anticipation and trusting the read, but that's Teddy's only advantage. If Taysom, he doesn't have to become Drew, but if he can just learn to trust the read and go based off of the personnel and the play call and go, I know they're going to play this, which means that's open. And the third step, the foot hits the ground and the ball is out, and start throwing guys open. He doesn't have to do it every play, but just show that he can do that. It's his. And I'll close with this on Taysom. I'm going to invoke a name because I see the Steve Young comparison all the time. He doesn't play like Steve Young. He's a extremely athletic white dude who plays quarterback, who is Mormon. So we talk about Steve Young.
Right.
That shit drives me crazy. that drives me just as mad as when we see like a black quarterback and we got to compare him to Michael Vick, and some of like Deshaun Watson is more like McNabb than he is Vick.
Right.
We got to just go, because stop that. Compare the players. Honestly, the way Taysom moves, and this year, not last year. Last year, like I said, he wasn't where he is mentally this year.
Right.
This year,
you can see the difference.
He reminds me a lot of Russell Wilson, just in the way he moves, how quick his feet are. That's one of the things with Russell Wilson I always notice is Russell Wilson does those long drop backs because of his height, but he gets to his spot so fast and gets his feet set so quick. He's able to make huge plays. He's got that big arm. He throws well on the run, but also it's that he makes those looping runs where he moves out a little bit and then around you because he knows he can beat you to the spot. Like I watch Taysom play and I go, if Russell Wilson fell into a vat of whiteout, this is how he would look.
And I never thought about that until you said it. The one common denominator between the two is they both have a level of confidence in their athleticism, meaning they keep their head up. Like most running quarterbacks, they'll typically drop their head when things get crazy. And for Taysom and even Russell, there's a certain confidence that they know, okay, when I really want to run, there's few guys in this league that can get that corner against me, so I don't have to panic. Now, Taysom does panic at times, and like you said, his anticipation is piss poor. I'm Taysom's biggest fan, and I know if the blitz is coming and he has to throw a deep out, if that guy is not wide open when he looks up, he's not going to throw him open. No. He's just not. But he does some things that he just like my last point. He does things that make a defensive coordinator become a little more predictable. Every time Greg Williams sent the big blitz at him, he made that corner or that DN or that linebacker obsolete by one
disdain.
step.
He had disdain for them. Like, really?
Yeah,
really?
I mean, they were coming off the edge clean, and he was like, okay, so I'm going to use your momentum against you. I'm going to take one step left or right. You're going to run right by me, and then I'm going to run past that second wave of guys. It was that simple. He never looked harassed. It was like, oh, really? Like, dude, I'm faster than you. Stop this. And it was just that simple. So we'll see, man. He's got a long way.
No question. No
But we'll
question. But
see.
yeah,
We'll see.
he showed a lot of good stuff. I'm actually going to take that into a segue into another player that I want to talk about. Now, there's kind of a running joke on our podcast of a certain diminutive individual that previously occupied the 1-1 jersey on this team that I watched play twice in preseason and went, he ain't got it. Parcells needs new glasses. And everybody got mad at me.
You've been consistent with your disdain for that TLL guy. Consistent from day one.
I love hard and I hate hard players. And it was, I've said it before. It was never about him. Like I want him to have a 10-year career. I just don't want him to have it in New Orleans.
Right.
Go have it in Arizona. Take all of Arizona's money, take care of your family, and go win 2 games a year with him on the roster every year. But I'm not going to turn this into a defecating on Tommy Lee Lewis, who got cut by Detroit, by the way. Guess they saw what we saw. I'll stop.
You can't help it. You cannot help it.
Like I said, I hate hard, and I'm petty. I'm very, very petty. But what I was gonna talk about is, the same thing we're talking about there with that leap from athlete to player that we saw in Taysom. We really just watched the same thing happen to that number 11 jersey. Tommy Lewis is a very similar athlete to Harris. He really is. They're similar size, similar tools, physically. Like 5 categories you would test at the combine, they're going to be pretty similar. Although there's no way in hell Harris is running a worse 3-cone than Tommy Lewis. Like that ain't happening.
Yeah,
but
you can see the difference in quickness.
Everything else, they're probably pretty similar. But when the ball gets snapped, and I'm kind of going off of what you were just talking about with Taysom, it's that confidence, and it's also that ability to read the field with the ball in your hands. Taysom is learning it from the quarterback standpoint. When the ball's in his hands and he's running, he has that confidence a supreme athlete has of, I'm not worried about the guy in front of me. Mm-hmm. I'm already looking at the guy behind him of how do I set him up and get past him? Because this dude's already toast. He just doesn't know it yet. You can't teach the mentality and you can't teach the ability to do that. This is the first time I've been excited about a return man since Darren Sproles. What do you think he's going to do this year?
I think he's going to bring 2 back this year.
You think he's going to get 2?
Yeah, I think he's going to get 2. You've already used the word twice. Confidence. Like there's only few guys, and I'm not even, this is going to sound crazy, and people are going to say this is blasphemous. There's a handful of guys in the last 10 years that have true confidence in their speed. Like Chris Johnson, Jamal Charles, Tyreek Hill. I'm not saying he's them.
Deshaun Jackson.
Deshaun does it. Yeah, but Deshaun does it from a long standpoint. Them first 3, they do it in traffic. As far as like Chris Johnson gets a lead if he gets to the second level and there's a safety and a linebacker coming. How Reggie would try to bounce it to avoid. Chris Johnson accelerates to split.
Yeah, Chris Johnson would say like, I got the turbo, you don't. You have.
Yeah, exactly. So when you look at Deontay Harris and you look at what he did on that end around Saturday, or whatever day that was, Friday, Thursday, and then you look at that punt return, he has a certain, if I see it, I trust my body can get there. And not all dudes are able to do that, or a lot of dudes are afraid of the collision if they guess wrong.
Yep.
And he's like, I'm not guessing wrong. I see it. I can get there. And he's not the fastest guy, but he gets to full speed very quickly. So every punt, if you're looking at it from the view of on your television, when he gets that first guy, past that first guy, even if it's an 8-yard return, there's a part of you that feels like, oh my God, if he gets to the wall, he's out of here. or if he just gets this one block, he's gone.
Oh
And
yeah.
we haven't felt that way, I would say, since prime Reggie, since 2007 Reggie. Darren was consistent, but not like this
Yeah,
guy. Like
Darren
this,
only ran one back.
exactly. Like this kid, you feel like if the Saints can get off the field on a 3-and-out within the opponent's 20 and you're forced to outkick the coverage, he's probably going to have a good shot to pop one.
Oh yeah.
Like he's going to start making people kick out of bounds to avoid him, which in turn is going to give even more hitting yards to the Saints offense. He's going to cause more shanks on punts than we've seen in a very long time here.
And you know, it's all connected. I mean, you know, obviously, I don't want to get too much into the defensive stuff today, but a player like that actually changes the way that the opposition will call on third down. If they know they're in third and long, if they're confident in their punt team, they know, hey, I can pin you. You're going to be a little less aggressive than you will of, we can't let him touch it.
Right.
So,
You'll run an inside
and if
draw
I
on
kick it
third
out of
and
bounds, I'm afraid of this offense. It will change a couple plays throughout the game. And there's a lot of hidden impact for a player like that. But just because I'm on a roll with this, I'm going to invoke another name here. Because I think there's one thing that he does, and I've seen a few guys who can do it at that return spot. Deshaun was okay at it. Dante Hall was special at it.
Yes.
A couple other guys were, but it's pace. It's not just running fast, which Tommy Lee Lewis was great at when he caught the ball. Lots of guys are great at running fast to a spot. It's changing that pace and matching it. And what we're talking about there, you know, I know I'm going to beat him to the spot is because I also know I'm not going full speed yet. I'm going to wait until you commit to the angle, and then I'm going to go because then I know I'm going to beat you. And the guy that I'm going to talk about that does the same thing, he's not the fastest player in the NBA, but he's one of the hardest to guard because he's mastered the art of adjusting his pace to put the opponent in a disadvantageous position, and it's Drew Holiday. Now, Drew does it with his handle. He's got great control, but it's that same element of I know where I'm going, and more importantly, I know when I'm going there, and you don't, which means you don't have a chance.
Yeah.
And that's like we said, it's just something you can't teach. Although if he could teach it, if there's one guy I would love him to teach it to on the offense, and I'll do another segue here. If he could teach that, like a 50th of that to Traquan Smith, and then like get him some of that old school Raiders stickum for his gloves, that man would be a monster.
I don't know how I feel about him. I mean, I know it's going into year 2.
I'll let you go first because I know how I feel about him.
I don't know him, and there's a certain laziness to his game, and he may not even be trying to give that vibe off. He'll run a lazy 5-yard out and then may have a concentration drop, and then he'll come back the same exact drive, maybe the next play, and catch a ball with his hands with 2 guys hanging off his back. And you're like, wow, damn, Traquan, that's a good-ass catch. He has deep speed, but you don't feel like he's a burner. He's a hell of a run blocker, but you still don't know where he really fits. Sean does him no favors, by the way. You would want a guy that physical to get him maybe a quick hitch against off coverage, a quick slant, run a drag, and see if anybody wants to tackle him. But Sean still has him run clear out routes when he clearly doesn't give the same effort as guys in the past. And I hate to use effort as a word, like in 2009 to 2011. Every route Meacham and Devery ran, you felt like they were running in front of a full house at the RCA Dome for the combine. Like they were legit running their 4.3s, even if they knew the ball was not coming. And that opened it up for everybody around them. With him, there's just a certain laissez-faire about his style that doesn't really radiates. I wouldn't say the fan base, but it just makes you question some things. And that could be the furthest thing from the truth, but that's just how his game looks.
Yeah. So, are you familiar with the term imposter syndrome?
No. What you got? I'm
All
curious
right.
about this.
Imposter syndrome is, and it's one of those things. It's stereotypically in minorities, but it actually can be anybody who comes from like a lower class, and then like you get promoted in the business world, or you're entering a new area, and it's this subconscious feeling of not being worthy or that you don't belong, and it impacts performance. I think that Traquan has the football version of that, and here's what I mean. He has every tool you would want to have for a Sean Payton receiver. He's got enough speed to scare you, enough physicality to block for you, enough fluidity to be able to run a strong variety of routes. He's got good enough hands to catch things. He actually plays the ball in the air sometimes really well, but something's missing. And pet theory, nothing to back this up other than just kind of understanding how people tend to work. I think he has the sports version of imposter syndrome, and you see it with guys who go from dominating in college in a small conference, and then they get to the pros, and they have the tools to dominate, but they don't have the confidence to believe that they should. And so, my opinion, I think, because we don't see the laziness from him when he's run blocking. When it's stuff that he knows he can do, you see him put in that effort. But when it's things where maybe I can, maybe I can't, and sometimes we call it the yips in sports, but I think he's got a bit of that. The other part of it, if I'm being honest, and it's not entirely fair, and it's definitely not what he should be doing, but I do think some of the effort on some of those deeper routes is in the back of his head going, he ain't going to get the ball to me anyway.
No, I agree.
Now that's a bad way to run your routes because it shows a lack of understanding of even if he doesn't get you the ball, you running this properly gets other guys open. And the Saints score touchdowns. Individuals don't. When you score a touchdown, the scoreboard shows that logo, not your face.
Yeah, no, that's the key. Like
but
it's a conviction.
I think it is that.
Yeah, it's a conviction of this is why there's a certain it's not even a lack. It's understanding your place in the offense. My place
100%.
Yeah, in my place is sometimes to give the illusion that it's a possibility I might get the ball. And not everybody buys in. For every guy who buys in, like Devriel Meacham, you'll have your Joe Morgan who doesn't, or you'll have
or Brandon Cooks.
I think Brandon Cooks bought in. I just think
he bought in when he knew he was still going to be the focus. And I'm an Oregon State alum, so I think there was no one who was a bigger Cooks fan than me. But I think the beef got a little bit overblown. But I think
it was always about money. It was never any real beef. It was about money because when they interviewed all his teammates, they was like, "Oh, he's the first guy here. Oh, he's a great teammate." It was about the money. The Saints didn't want to pay him, and they just flipped it to a much bigger story.
Yeah, no question. Now one guy, kind of the opposite of Traquan, interestingly enough, and apparently I just saw this earlier today, but I actually kind of like it. He might have the best nickname on the team in eBay. But we all saw all the camp hype, all the camp for Emmanuel Butler. And then he's hurt the first two games. And we're like, okay, is this dude even going to play? Is this another Arrington? We're like, come on, man. How many of these camp legends I'm going to have to see?
Mm-hmm.
I saw something from him, and I've seen you mention it on Twitter, so I'm going to let you go on this, give your thoughts. But I saw something from him in a single play. At that one play, I went, this guy will make the roster. He's going to have some ups and downs. He's going to be the fourth receiver, maybe the fifth. We'll see how that goes, but there's no way Sean's letting him leave the roster. When he reached back across his body and snagged that ball out of the air when Teddy threw him that pass 2 games ago, I went, this guy's making the team because he does something only one other guy, no, two other guys on the roster do. Cook does it, Michael Thomas does it. And that is operate with the assumption that the ball is theirs. It's already mine. I'm just taking it. They're the only the only three guys on this team that treat the ball like it already belongs to them and are offended when you think they're not going to catch it. That's how he attacks it in the air. I've actually seen a little bit more wiggle in space from him than I thought I was going to see, which I liked. But for me, that catch put him in a spot where just with his toolkit, Sean's going to give him a year or two to try to make something of himself because he plays that way. What's your thinking on him?
I'm thinking by the end of the season, he's the number 2 receiver. That's what I'm thinking.
I'm not alone.
So the play you're talking about, let's take a step back and think about that play. Prior to that play, Teddy was spiraling downhill. He looked awful. He was struggling. And I kept saying, all right, somebody's got to help Teddy out. Somebody's got to make a play. Somebody's got to help him out. Okay, Traquan's dropping a beautiful ball. Again, is letting one go off his head. Kirkwood is getting a pass interference in the red zone on the out route, which was one of the ugliest routes I've ever seen in that situation in one-on-one coverage.
Washington can't catch a cold in the Arctic.
I was like, somebody has to help him. And Teddy throws it down and away, and he slides like he's going into second base and still catches it with his hand and gets the 15-yard play. And from that point on, Teddy took off. At some point, someone has to make a play.
Yep.
And Butler took that responsibility and said, hey, I know you're struggling. This is not even really a great ball, but I'm going to help my quarterback, and I'm going to get his confidence going. And you saw Teddy immediately go on that 2-minute drive and start performing much better. And as a wide receiver, you have to do that sometimes. I mean, Larry Fitzgerald has made a career of making guys look better than what they are. And sometimes you need that. And I'm not comparing him to Larry Fitzgerald, but sometimes you need a guy. Yeah, I'm saying sometimes you need a guy who can just make a play. Even on a touchdown play, he was held from the 5-yard point into the entire time he caught the ball. And yet he caught that ball with confidence, like, dude, you suck. I'm bigger than you. I'm faster than you. Yep. This is the easy catch for me. So
I like to skip up the sideline too.
Yeah, man. I like
his body language.
Yeah, he plays confident. He plays confident. And his ability to play both inside and outside. I would not be shocked if by the end of the year he's the number 2 receiver. And I know that may be a hot take, that may be extreme, but he just has a certain level of consistency. And yeah, he'll have his concentration drops when he's trying to do too much.
So did Colston.
Yeah, but exactly.
I'm sure you saw Nick's breakdown of Colston last year. Like, that was, we always asked the question, why doesn't he make the Pro Bowl? Why didn't he get as much hype as he deserved? It was because every year he'd drop a few gimmies, and it's like that was the difference between his numbers being at the top and being where they were, which was just under that threshold.
Yeah. So
hey, I'll take another Marcus.
Hey, man, and I think he has, and you mentioned it earlier, he has more wiggle than Colston does.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah, I'm like I said, it's early. I just don't think you let a guy like that get out the building, and I think he has the potential to help immediately. He's able to contort his body. He has that's what I want to say. He has body control at that size, and that's hard to teach. Most 6'4" guys are either lumbering, they're stiff as far as the hip movement and the ability to move. Nah, he looks like he plays like he's much smaller than what he is, and that's a compliment to him. So I think he's going to have a huge impact. Not a huge impact, but I think he's going to have a nominal impact on his offense, and he's going to be hard to keep off the field on Sundays.
So just because I'm on a roll with these, I'm gonna throw out another name. And I'm gonna put a caveat on this one. I'm not saying they're close to the same player. But last year we tried to sign Dez Bryant.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at him and Butler. They're almost the same size. They're pretty much the same athlete. Big, physical, strong hands, kind of mean in the air in a good way. Really not that fast. Biggest difference between them is Dez knew, I'm going to just cook you. And Dez at one point in his career was a one-on-one monster because he not only would win every jump ball, but he would beat you up at the line of scrimmage, kind of like the way Mike does, and get free. And he had that confidence of, I'm going to dominate you. But you take that confidence, and I know Sean loves that, has that quote about confidence is proven performance or whatever the exact quote is.
Yeah, proven performance over an extended period of time.
Yeah, like confidence can be grown. But the things that made you like Dez, other than the name Dez, but just the fit of Dez for this offense, Butler fills that spot. Big body, sure hands, aggressive in the air, plays the ball well, believes in himself, and good in open space. It's all the same boxes, but you're getting it from a UDFA. Now, the difference is with Dez, it's a sure thing. If the ball's in the air, Dez is going to go get it. Even Wash Dez, he's going to try to go get it.
Yeah.
With Butler, you have to hope that he can build that confidence and, most importantly, that trust with Drew. Because Drew will put it in a spot where he's the only one that can get it, but if he doesn't go get it, it doesn't mean anything.
Right. And
so
I think
I'm not saying he is Dez.
No. I like the comparison. I just think
same guy.
I think the one major difference between the two, and I just think there's certain guys that have it. Adrian Peterson has it. Des Bryant has it. Darius Geis, when he was at LSU, had it. There's certain guys in the league that has come from major trauma in their life that they play with a level of anger that they're truly, Marshawn Lynch, another guy. There's just a level of a level of rage inside of them that they've been able to channel into the football field that other dudes are just like, it's not that serious, bro. I don't care about it as much as you do. And,
no question.
And so I think, and that's hard. You can't make a player have that. You have to just be born with something in you, like when every time Adrian Peterson runs, he feels like I'm trying to get to whoever did this to me when I was a kid, whoever, harmed my brother, murdered my brother or something. There's just
you say his name, you think of that play against the Steelers.
Yeah. There's just
like, oh no, you're gonna hit me? No. I'm gonna hit you.
And there's just certain guys that have that, and and like I said, so I think Dez is one of those guys that is motivated.
I think Mike has that.
Yeah,
he doesn't have that same. I don't think he has that same background, but he has that edge to him. I think Mike has it from I have always been discounted, and I'm pissed about it, and I'm gonna take it out on all of y'all.
Steve Smith,
Steve Smith might be one of the littlest receivers ever. That dude had the biggest chip.
Yeah, I mean, just
how the hell that man didn't get sponsored by Tostitos? I'll never understand. But,
yeah, man, just some dudes have a level of rage inside of them, and I think
Steve Smith scoops.
Yeah. So I
100% on that.
Yeah, I like Butler. I'm expecting some big things for him. I'm a Butler fan.
Just because we've been agreeing a little too much here. So I'm gonna see if we're still on different pages on this one. So we already know who number 1 and number 2 are at the running back position. I think we have different guys who that third guy in the pecking order is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me why Dwayne Washington should be the number 3 running back. Now, let's assume that he's healthy, he comes back from the concussion, all that. But just why do you think he should be the number 3 back?
And because he's the up back on kick return, that's really going to that's kind of going to determine it right there. His special teams play is valued a lot. And I think that's why he's going to make the team. And as a pure runner, we've talked about this on Twitter. I think he's a better runner than Ozigbo, but I do think Ozigbo is a more complete back and it's just about what they value. Do they value the more complete back who has a chance in maybe a couple years of being a lead back? Not saying he would because AK is here, but Ozigbo has that kind of skill set to mirror a Pierre Thomas type of a player. Or are they looking for a guy who's going to contribute on all special teams that can be a hammer should Murray get injured? So that's really the decision you're making. I don't think there's a wrong decision, but Ozigbo has, for as good as his feet are and his ability, the first guy has no chance of tackling Ozigbo. None, no chance. But he takes some shots that a running back should not be taking. So I don't know if that's a vision issue, if that's a protect yourself issue, but he gets hammered. And I'm like, damn, dude, like cover you, do something. You shouldn't be getting hit like that.
I was actually hoping you were going to bring that part up.
Yeah, that dude takes some malicious shots. And I'm like, dude, you got to figure something out, bro, because that's not supposed to happen. So that's my issue with him. It just makes me wonder what's his lack of anticipation, vision. I don't know what, but he gets obliterated way too often. And so that would worry me about him.
It's totally fair. And this is one of those things, like, I don't think either of us necessarily have the right answer. I think Sean Payton will have a answer. So here's kind of my perspective. I agree that Washington's the more valuable guy on special teams, but the question for me is very simple on that, and I think this may well decide his fate if Sean doesn't keep 4. Is there anyone else on the roster that can do the same role? 80% as well. Because if there is, it's really going to come down to, would I rather keep Dwayne Washington or have more depth at another spot? Because in this offense, Ozigbo is the far more valuable player because he's not one-dimensional. But also, I slightly disagree on Washington is the better runner. I would say I actually think Ozigbo is the better runner, but I think Washington has a little bit higher focus. Like, Washington is a one-trick back. He is a one-cut, run-to-daylight hammer. Doesn't mean he doesn't have any wiggle, but that's the type of run he wants to have. He's got a little bit of tusk in him. Not comparing him and Ivory at all. Ivory ran with a different kind of anger, and more speed too. But just stylistically.
Yeah, no, because Dwayne Washington, people wouldn't believe it if you told them, but at his size, at the 6'1", 225, 230, he's like a 4'4" guy, like a 4'4" type of a guy. So he has the long speed.
Yeah, he has the long speed. We saw it last year. Like he can go, especially straight line, but he is I'm going to make one cut, I'm going to put my foot in the ground, and whatever's in that direction, I'm either hitting it or I'm going to daylight.
Yeah.
And there's value in that, and there's some duplication with him and Murray, because Murray's very similar back to that as well. But the issue I have is, number one, he can't catch.
Oh, he can't,
which is a problem.
He really gets in a boxing match with the ball.
Hands like feet.
So, yeah.
He's hitting that ball like he's Floyd. He hits harder than Floyd, but so does my sister.
You just can't help yourself.
I can't help myself. I hate hard. Plus, he beats women, so he deserves whatever he gets. But anyway, but my thing is also, like, when I look at who's the best runner, I always try to look at, I'm going to say the guy who does the most things well is the best, unless someone does something special. So is Dwayne Washington special at something? As a runner, I don't think he is. I think he's good. I might even say very good at certain components. But is he special? Well, he's not. Okay, well, Ozigbo's got better feet. Also runs well through contact. Runs hard. Now, he uses leverage because he's a different size human. He runs differently. He is a guy who's able to flow through traffic. He cuts better. But the thing we forget, he's faster than Dwayne Washington. And the biggest piece to me, and this is, like I said earlier, preseason, there's so many factors it becomes hard to judge. So I'm looking at what a guy can do versus necessarily just what he did. I fully agree with you that he took some shots, but I'm also looking at a lot of his runs that he got, especially on the ones when he was taking those shots, were when the second and the third string guys are out there, which means not only is the line play worse, more importantly, the blocking at the second level is worse, which means guys who should not be able to come to hit him are getting free because guys who don't block well are usually playing on the second and third team. And so he's making the right reads, making the right cuts, making a guy miss, and guys are coming in from spots they really shouldn't have been, at least at that time, if guys were doing their job. At least that's the part that I saw. So I always ask the question, especially in preseason, okay, well, if Traquan is in front of him and we got the Saints starting O-line, what can he do with that? Because if he's making the roster, that's the question the coaches are asking. If I put him in a good spot, what can he do? If I put him in a bad spot, what can he do? That's my biggest reason for, other than the versatility, which we're 100% on the same page for, but I look at it as they're basically dead even, and he had worse opportunities, which makes it really clean cut for me.
So my counter to that would be, if either one of them are playing, you're almost, especially Dwayne Washington, he would only be playing in a winning time situation.
Or if Murray got hurt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Murray got hurt. If you're asking me on a 3rd and 1, who do I want to tackle? I don't want no parts of Washington, period. If you're asking me in the fourth quarter and I'm down 7 and the Saints are in their 4-minute drill, I don't want to tackle Washington. I just don't. Ozigbo doesn't strike that same level of fear. So while we agree he is the more complete back, there's a certain level of physicality that he just can't match that Washington provides. Like if they both played a game and they both had 25 carries, Ozigbo has the better chance of popping that long one, but he's also going to have far more negative plays. I just think Darrell Washington, if there's 1 yard to be gotten, he's going to get 3. You know, his lean, he's just not going to take many negative plays just because he's such a physical force.
No, that's fair. Ozigbo is definitely more dependent on his blocking.
Yeah, he's so like we've both agreed, if Ozigbo gets past the first wave, he's going to embarrass the first tackler who tries to tackle him at that. And so I would never disagree with that. If he has space, the ability to jump cut or slash like Mark Ingram does, he is a problem. But when things are, shot to shit from the jump, I don't see him doing all that much. With Washington, I think he'll stiff arm the hell out of somebody and say, who's got next? And you'll see more business decisions made with him. And I think that, has a value in its own sense.
Yeah,
but
it's definitely not valueless. Here's the only, I wouldn't even call it a counter, but I would just say additional context to that. If it's 3rd and 1 and I really need to run a smash play and I don't have Murray, it ain't going to Dwayne Washington or Ozigbo. It's going to be a draw to Zach Line. We all know it.
Oh, yeah. Zach Line getting that. Yeah, I'm a huge
and he's going to pick it up. And
yeah,
so that's
easy.
That's part of what I'm looking at is, if I was just looking situationally, I would 100% agree with you. Like in those specific situations, I would rather have Washington over Ozigbo. But I already have Line for that specific situation, who's better option than both of them. But I'm also looking at the end of the season, if I decided to take Murray out for a play, but I wanted to put Ozigbo and Kamara on the field at the same time, and knowing how Sean Payton works and how this offense works, this offense becomes exponentially more dangerous the more viable options that are on the field at the same time. Ozigbo and Kamara actually marry very well, because Kamara is good in short yardage. We saw Ozigbo. He's not Washington. He's not a smash mouth guy, but he can go get you 2 or 3 when you need 2 or 3, as long as the play doesn't get blown up.
Yeah, he's got enough size. He's like
but the ability where
he's got good size.
Either could go on a screen, I'll bet he could. I bet he could run a wheel route. He may be able to run a slant. He probably can't run like Kamara can, but he has he has enough lateral agility to run something. So if I'm Sean Payton, I'm a mad scientist. I want to play those two guys off of each other. That gives a lot more big picture value to me, and I'm very much a big picture focused guy. Now all that said, my preference would be to keep both. But if I can only keep one, I'm going to take the guy who's going to have the largest net impact potentially on my team. And the only reason not the only, but the biggest reason I would say Ozigbo over Washington is the things that Washington absolutely brings value at are redundant with other players who bring similar value.
But that's not including special teams.
And that's why I said that the whole question comes down to, is there someone on the roster who can give you 80% of what Washington gives you at the same spot on special teams? Because if there is, and that person can play the up back, then it's over to me.
Yeah, so
if there isn't, he has a very strong case.
So I feel like I'm about to contradict myself of everything I've just said in a positive about Washington. All right. For a 16-game season, and you told me I needed a lead back out of the two, I want a Zigbo as that guy because of his versatility. But as a third running back who can contribute in more ways than offensively, just as a set, this is your role, you will never get out of this role, I would prefer Washington. So I agree with you that
that's fair.
Undoubtedly Ozigbo is the more skilled back. But in Sean's predictable role-based team structure, I think Washington gives you more value on Sundays. But if you made me choose a lead guy who I want to be as the top guy out of those two, it is Ozigbo 100 out of 100 times. So it just matters what Sean has more value in. Does he have more value in that role? Like a guy like Brandon Coleman, who if he doesn't hurt his back is probably still on this team playing significant snaps because he fit the role that was carved out for him. And Sean is in love with having roles. So that would be my argument there.
So you're saying Sean Payton likes role play?
Hey, he's got to, man. If
Someone tell Diana.
Hey, man, he builds his team truly in like a puzzle of how does every guy fit, even if the more talented guy isn't on that team any longer.
Sean looks at net impact, not maximizing the individual.
Right.
Unless maximizing the individual leads to the greatest net impact.
Right.
Right. Which, to a degree, I mean, he a lot of people have said it, but he is in many ways the offensive version of Belichick in that regard. I'm looking for the greatest net performance that is positive from these group of people. I don't really care what you want to do. But if you do what I ask you to do and you execute, we're always going to have success.
Symmetry. That's all he wants on his team is symmetry.
No question. So I think now is a perfect time to start getting into just kind of big picture predictions, biggest concerns. But before that, I have one more shot. Who's got worse hands, Dwayne Washington or Dan Arnold?
Depends on how big the moment is in a game.
That's actually probably the most accurate answer. Dan can catch, but is scared to catch. Dwayne Washington can't catch, but he ain't scared to try.
Right.
He'll go up for it. He just ain't coming down with it. Yeah. So I would love to hear. Let's start. You want to start with the positive, or you want to start with the negative?
You can't do one without the other if he's involved. So.
Oh no, I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about the whole offense. I just wanted that shot.
Okay.
We already know what's up with tight end. It's Cook, then it's Hill, then it's everybody else.
Yeah, well, since Derby's been cut, it's Arnold now. He's got that job all the way locked up as the third tight end.
Especially because Matt couldn't get those 2 touchdowns in the preseason.
And he's too busy, fighting with his helmet off. But neither here nor there.
Yeah, neither here nor there for sure. That's always the thing I never. Why the hell would you take the helmet off? That's a damn weapon. Start headbutting people. Thank God athletes can't fight. Especially in baseball. They're the worst fighters on earth, which is good.
I think basketball is worse.
No,
Basketball.
that one doesn't count because they all fake fight. They all do the KG stuff. I'm gonna get you, y'all dog, hold me back. They all do that stuff. But here's why I say baseball players are the worst fighters. Guy hits you on purpose with the ball. You have a bat in your hand and you leave the bat before you go get him. Nah, you ain't allowed to fight nobody.
You're trying to get somebody arrested is what you want.
Hey, you could drop the bat right before you get to him, but you gonna have that man so scared he ain't gonna be able to do nothing back.
You're gonna get that hitter blindsided by a catcher who's gonna protect his pitcher at all costs in that situation.
Hey, we've seen what happened with a dude who's really about that business. You know, we all know that one play. My man's kicked the catcher first, and then went after the pitcher.
That's when you have malicious intent because you know the catcher is the one guy you can't account for. He gave him a nice super kick
that was
and then proceeded to go up to the pitcher.
And he got a bigger pop than Dolph Ziggler ever has. But anyway, that's actually not true. There was that one SummerSlam, or no, Survivor Series. But we're not going to say this is going another 45 minutes if we start talking wrestling.
Yeah.
But no. So let's start with the bad, so we can end on the good. So what do you think? Not counting injuries, because that's kind of a no-brainer. What do you think is the worst case or the floor for this offense, especially going into the end of the season and expectedly the playoffs?
I think it's three things. I think O-line depth, especially tackle. I know we said we can't talk about injuries, but there's no way Armstead is going to play 16 games. He's just not built that way. So
I will dunk again in my life before Armstead plays 16 games.
Yeah.
So I ain't dunked since I was 200 pounds.
O-line depth is a real concern for me. The top six I like a lot, including Easton. But after Easton, it wouldn't shock me if two O-linemen that were cut off teams are signed before Tuesday and knock two guys off this roster. I would not be remotely shocked about that. That would be the first concern for me. The second concern for me would be if the wide receivers have not progressed since last year, and we have another year when the second leading wide receiver is, a guy with 28 catches. And the third concern with me would be, I hate to say it, but if that cliff is coming for Drew, I don't think it is. I do think he was injured, even though his pride would never let him say that. But if that cliff is really coming, that could be an issue, obviously. So that would be my three concerns.
Okay. I think I probably have the same three. 100% on the offensive line. I think the tackle depth is tackle depth is my number one concern. If we got Emmanuel Butler off eBay, we're gonna have to get a lineman from Goodwill. Like we're gonna need to get somebody's knockoff T-shirt that's 30 years old and smells like weed, and that's just gonna be what it's gonna be. But you got to get something there. I'm actually a lot less concerned about wide receiver, but here's why. Because I really look at net production rather than just groups. Especially with the way our offense tends to work. If we didn't have Jared Cook, I would be very, very concerned about wide receiver. I mean, we may still add Kenny Stills or another guy, before the first game. Although if they're going to add anybody at this point in time, I think it would be him because he already knows the offense. It hasn't changed that much.
Mm-hmm.
But your top three receivers are Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, and Jared Cook, in that order, in my opinion.
Yep.
Which means the number two receiver is your fourth receiver on the depth chart. So I need fourth skill position guy production. I need 30 to 40 catches between 300 and 500 yards. And if he gives me 5 touchdowns, I'm really satisfied with that. So to me, it comes down to, can I get that from Ted Ginn? Can I get that from Emmanuel Butler? Or can I get that from Keith Kirkwood? I think it's going to come between Butler and Kirkwood from a catches standpoint. Butler might be a red zone nightmare, so we'll see how that works out. I think they may leverage him there.
You're really not a fan of Traquan because you haven't mentioned him.
Well, I'm just about to get into him.
Okay.
Because it's not that I'm not a fan of him. It's just that I don't have a lot of trust. If I'm being honest.
That's fair.
I think he could be great, but he just hasn't shown it to me. And the difference is Davenport didn't flash a lot in the preseason, but he showed last year that he's a gamer. He didn't look good in the preseason last year either. And then when it actually mattered, all of a sudden he started once or twice a game doing things where we went, oh.
Yeah. He was good for one.
When the lights go on, he
Yeah.
starts to rev up. Traquan never did. So I don't have that faith in him of, well, at least I know
he had those
do.
2 really good games, but then he had more games with 0 catches.
Yeah, and even on those 2 games, like he's scoring on busted plays.
You're right. This is
so it's like
that Philly game, he was strong.
No, that's fair. The Philly game, he was strong.
That was it. That Washington game was very inflated.
It was a busted play. Props to him. You executed, but it was just like that wasn't enough for me to go, he's got it. Right. But I put Traquan and Ted in the same group with Ted, as the veteran, the more proven guy being ahead of him. I don't expect either of those guys to lead or even be second on the team in catches. If they're second on the team in yards for the wide receiver group, it means they probably hit a bunch of big plays. And if they're second on the team in touchdowns, it means the same thing. Well, the only way either those 2 guys are getting off frequently on big plays or touchdowns or both is if Kamara, Thomas, and Cook are dominating that first 30 so much that teams are panicking and those guys are just getting open shots downfield. And the O-line is giving Drew enough protection that he can, set his feet, get his mechanics right, and hoist the ball 40, 45 yards down the field. So for those guys, because of their skill set, but also their role in the offense, I look at it a bit less of this is you driving your production and more of the team performance creates your production. Versus a guy like Kirkwood or a guy like Butler, where I look at it as the role you are going to have opportunities, and it kind of a requirement for you need to be able to generate some of your own production. You're going to be expected to move the chains, to catch 5, 6, 7 balls on certain games, to make things happen. Whereas a Traquan or Ginn, depending on how the other guys are performing, is going to determine what type of opportunities they get. Because if the other guys aren't performing, that safety's just going to be waiting there and they ain't going to do nothing.
Yeah.
And so that's just how I look at it. It's not that I dislike him or Ginn, but they are ancillary to me if I'm looking at it for the production from the wide receiver position. So it really is going to come down to one of those 2 UDFAs needs to be competent. Not a star, not a stud. I think we both agree. I think we're on the same page of which guy it's going to be. But I just need you to be competent. When they double Mike and they're shading things towards Cook, and it's Dallas, and they have the linebackers to go one-on-one with Kamara. Can you find the zone, sit in it, catch the ball, and get Drew another first down to continue to wear down that defense? That's all I need from you.
Going to have to step up,
but I have to trust.
He's going to have to.
Yeah, and it's going to be him or Kirkwood.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's me on receiver, and then the one for Drew. Because I like I said, I agree with you on the 3. So we both agree. Drew was definitely banged up last year, towards the end of the year. I look at Drew, but I also look at, like, if we look at Tom won a Super Bowl last year. Well, did Tom look great in that Super Bowl? No, he looked like ass.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't play good. He didn't look like, oh my God, Tom Brady has won 6 Super Bowls. No, the Patriots have won 6 Super Bowls. Tom has been below average in 3 of them. That's called having a great team. Now, he was spectacular in 3 of them too, but like that's where team gets you through. But I look at the differences. Tom Brady's protection at the end of the year was exceptional. Drew Brees' protection at the end of the year was ass. That was straight cheeks. No two ways about it. Ramczyk was hurt. Warford was hurt. Unger was washed. Pete was in a cast. Teron actually looked great towards the end of the year. For once, Teron was the healthiest offensive lineman at the end of the year.
Playing with a torn pec or whatever he was playing with.
Yeah. And like we make the jokes about him missing time, but that guy plays through injury, and not just plays through injury, but plays through injury and still dominates like almost no one I've ever seen. I've seen guys play through injury and be competent. I've watched you see Teron play through injury and guys still can't even pressure the quarterback on him. It's impressive. But I think you can distill this entire season and the postseason just with the way this roster is constructed, the way the talent is at the skill positions, where Drew is in his career. I think you can take everything, throw it in a pot, and on offense, it really all comes down to, can the O-line be healthy? Because if they can, everything works. You'll be able to run the ball. You'll be able to be varied. You'll be able to use formations. You'll be able to have time. Drew can rely on his accuracy and his acumen. But if not, they have one guy who you can reliably go, hey, just go beat your man in Michael Thomas, but he is not a game breaker. So yeah, he's going to go beat his guy, but he's not going to make that guy miss and then run off for a 60-yard touchdown and blow a game open and give you that buffer to get the momentum back. Everybody has to quit on the play and fall asleep like happened against the Rams last year for that to happen. Mike's an awesome player, but he doesn't bring you that element, and no one else does either. So for me, it really comes down to, if we can keep Drew upright and we have good enough offensive linemen to create holes in the running game, this offense could average 30 plus.
Yeah. And I don't think it comes from Mike, but I think there's a chance it can come from Jared Cook. You know,
that's
like
fair. That's
like
fair.
and you know
and that is a new element, no question.
Yeah, that stretch of 2011 to 2013, you know, Jimmy Graham was the quote unquote deep threat. He was the game breaker.
He was the baddest man in football.
Yeah, he was the guy who took the busted coverage 60 yards up the seam. So maybe Jared Cook can do that. So we'll see. We'll see. A lot of pressure on him, but maybe he's the offensive game breaker that we expect.
No question. No, that's a great point. And I think that kind of just segues us into, all right, what's the worst case and what do we need to avoid it? So now be the optimist. Everything goes right. Offensively, what does this year look like? Go ahead and be wild. I want to hear something crazy. Let's have a little fun with it.
If they get the O-line, if Eric McCoy is every bit as good as he's shown in the preseason, this offense is going to be hell to deal with. Like, just that simple. I think I've talked about this on Twitter. I've talked about it on the pod. I think he's going to be a substantial upgrade over 2018 Max Unger. And I don't think enough people have considered that yet. If he is, that's just going to open up some doors for Drew to be more confident and stepping up in the pocket. And we all have watched Drew enough to where if he's taking that little crow hop before he lets the ball go, somebody is wide the F open deep. So I think he's underrated. If he is as good as I believe him to be, that in itself is going to make the offense significantly better. The number 2 thing, no one has really addressed it. I think AK was hurt last year. I think he got hurt in that Giants game, and he didn't. Besides that one run in the Giants game, after that game, he didn't have another carry over 19 yards the rest of the season. I don't think he was right. So I know, yes, his usage went up. He was no way he was going to be able to repeat that phenomenal yards per carry he had his rookie year, but he was not the same guy. He had bursts, he had moments, but I do think he was dealing with injury last year. So those 2 factors would be enough for me.
Okay. I agree with both. I think McCoy is going to have an impact. I do agree. I think it might have been a hammy, or so just something aggravated. I think the O-line play at certain parts of the year was part of it. I think playing better defenses and better linebackers was a part of it, but I also agree there were elements that he didn't have in year 2 that he had in year 1, and there were some things he added that helped make up the difference. But if we could get the complete version of him, and I love that you finished with Alvin, because I'm actually going to start there. I'm going to invoke one more name today. This is what I think would be the thing that would put this offense into best case scenario. Drew goes out the way that he should go out type of production. AK has the skill set, and I think he has the opportunity to do the full Roger Craig.
Okay, 1,000 yards, both rushing and receiving.
Double 1K for AK. Too many Ks.
I mean, he's not far. He wasn't far off it, so it's not unreasonable.
And I think it's going to take, it's going to take some big plays. He's going to get the consistency, but he's going to need the opportunities to break big plays, like that wheel route we saw on the 3 plays he played against the Jets, and then Sean Wade. That's enough.
That's enough.
I mean, if that guy doesn't get him by the feet, that's probably a 70-yard touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to need a few of those to break right where guys don't quite get him, and then he gets out into space, and that magic is back. But if Alvin is able to have 1,000 of each, which I think in the best case scenario he really could, if he's having that kind of production, I don't see any scenario where anybody. Dallas, you can pick your favorite defense. Dallas and Baltimore are probably the only 2 defenses that even slightly concern me as far as being able to bother him.
Mm-hmm.
If he's having that kind of production, they have no chance, because if you start having to send a second guy, Cook's good enough, Mike's good enough. I think these other guys are good enough. Murray also does not get talked about. Murray, and I get it. I know he was your boy more than anybody. I remember the days when we used to fight about Mark before he turned that corner. Murray has not gotten talked enough about what he can do. He is a hammer. He's better at catching the ball than people think he is.
Agreed.
But he's one of those guys where he has a second gear. He's not a guy like Adrian Peterson hit second gear before the ball even got to him on handoffs. Like there's a special there that you can't teach, that only a couple players in the history of the game has ever had that gear. And then he had a second gear from that. Murray doesn't have that. But he does have that long stride, powerful drive in the legs of, if he gets out to the second level and plants that leg, he is gone.
Yeah.
You're not catching him.
Yeah.
If you have the angle, you might salvage it. It might be a 50-yard run.
Yeah, he runs a lot like the Olympian Michael Johnson in track, as far as you have to catch him before he's able to stand all the way up, like to where he can straighten up. If he straightens up and he's in the open field, it's usually a done deal.
He's pulling away.
Yeah, at that size, man, he has phenomenal speed if he can get up to it. So you have to keep him from getting up to that speed. So you said about the 1,000 and 1,000. I think a productive Latavius Murray would be the biggest hindrance to AK getting that. But if Murray's running the ball with any kind of, the last 3 years he's been like a 3.9 yards per carry guy with 2 piss poor offensive lines in Minnesota and Oakland. If these guys are really blocking and he's getting 4.5 a pop, or doing like Ingram was getting 4.8, 4.9, it's going to be hard for AK to get the carries necessary to get to 1,000 yards.
That's actually the piece where I disagree. I agree with the logic, but I actually disagree with that. And here's really where I think it actually helps AK get to that. If AK is going to hit 1,000 and 1,000 in the passing game, he definitely can do it. But if for him to do it in the running game, he's going to need more like toss sweeps, stuff out to the edges. He's going to need to get into space quickly. Like he was actually a goal line monster last year. People didn't give enough credit for it, but AK was money in within 5.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to need more of those big runs. If Murray is having that type of production because of the style of runner, because he's a hammer who gets up to speed, and when in the first quarter and the second quarter and even going into the third quarter, when that guy keeps hitting you, even if he only gets to the 6 yard, when he hits you and you're a guy in the secondary, you're a safety, you're a corner, even a lot of linebackers, what it does is it takes your legs. You get to that spot just half a tick late as the game wears on. AK, if he's going to hit that 1,000, needs somebody to get guys that half tick behind so that he works that crazy voodoo witchcraft bullshit matrix magic that he does.
Balance is crazy. Yeah,
I actually know how he does it, but the shit's fucking spectacular. He has absolutely unreal core strength. And reaction speed. But if guys are that half tick late, AK is going to be able to make that one more cut that turns some of those 7 to 12, those plays where he turns a 5 yard play into 12, and then all of a sudden he's turning a 12 into a 45.
He's going to need it.
That's what is going to be the key to him getting to the 1,000 and 1,000. Murray's not going to get the density of touches to really impact that no matter how he's performing. But the only way Alvin is able to have that type of production is if Murray is wearing guys down and also helping to break those spirits so that later in the games, kind of like that Giants game, Alvin's just putting it away.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
big plays
to me
then.
where, as weird as it sounds to say, if Murray has the production, Alvin can hit his peak. That's really where I look at it for. Alvin has to be consistently in advantageous positions if he's going to hit that 1,000 and 1,000, and that only works if the whole thing's humming.
No, and that's fair. I mean, when you really take a step back and think of it, I don't know if Sean. I think the magic number for AK per game is 20 touches. No matter how he gets to it, I think 20 is the magic number. I don't think they want him to get to 25 or 30. I think they're cool with 20. I think he was so good in 2017. Because Mark was so good in 2017. So I agree with what you're saying. Mark's efficiency and his ability to get 1,600 total yards freed up AK to get 1,500 yards because they both were just wearing people down and they both played so differently yet were extremely effective. I don't think any two running backs will ever achieve what they did of having two guys have 1,500 plus total yards and 12 TDs in a season. I just don't think that's ever going to happen again. So yeah, I could see why you feel. That makes a lot of sense.